it's just traffic.
Yeah,
Winter's here or whatever.
yeah, traffic was
Season's here.
bad on 95.
Ready when you are.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is the Planning and Zoning Board meeting for the Village of Tequesta. It is November 19th, and we'll call the meeting at 5:30. Lance, may I have a roll call, please?
Jen Strand,
Here.
Steve Egan,
Here.
Elizabeth Shower,
Here.
Ashley Warren, Leslie Dasher,
Here.
Teresa Maggio, Marguerite Wilson, Holly Young.
Here.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of tonight's agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion approved. Our next item is the approval of the previous meeting minutes of October 15th, 2020. Did you all get a chance to review the minutes?
Yes. Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes of October 15th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Do you want to take over for quasi?
You can read item 1 in the
Okay,
book if you want. and then-
all right. On our agenda tonight, item number 1 is variance 6-20, which is an application from Bryan and Noelle McGilvray requesting a variance from section 78-284 to install a fence forward of the adjacent or nearest portion of the building front where the code does not permit any wall or fence to extend forward of the adjacent or nearest portion of the building front. The address of the property is 323 Lee Road in Tequesta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If the applicants could approach the podium, please. Anyone speaking tonight? Can you state your names for the record?
Yes, good evening, it's BRYAN McGILVRAY, and
NOELLE MCGILVRAY.
Thank you. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, so I have to swear you in. Can you both raise your right hands for me? Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes,
Yes.
Thank you. I'll turn back to the Planning and Zoning Board, and I'll ask if there are any ex parte communications with regard to VAR 6-20 that need to be disclosed at this time.
No, ma'am.
No.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if I could, before the applicant makes their presentation, if I could just give a few reminders about what your capacity is here tonight.
Certainly.
Thank you. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, so you are sitting here tonight considering the application before you, which is for a variance. Your task tonight is to evaluate the testimony that you hear tonight, the PowerPoint presentation, as well as the documents that are in the record. Those are the applicant's application, the staff report, the the attachments to their application, basically all the paper that you have before you, that is the record. You'll hear the testimony and evidence before you from the applicant as well. Your job is to evaluate what you hear tonight against the variance criteria. I'll point out that those are on page 5 of the staff report. There are 5 of them. You are to evaluate the evidence tonight and to determine whether the applicant has met the burden of satisfying each of the village's variance criteria. If you look at page 5, the first criteria is that special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. The second criteria is that special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Third criteria is that granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by this chapter to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. Number 4 is that literal interpretation of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of this chapter and would work unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. The next criteria is the variance granted is a minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. And the final criteria is that the grant of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this chapter, and such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. And I think I said 5, there are actually 6. My apologies. As I said, your job is to listen to the evidence before you and determine whether the applicant has met their burden and satisfied each of those criteria. If you feel that the applicant has met their burden, then you are obligated and they are entitled to a grant of the variance. However, if you feel that they have not met any of those criteria, the opposite is true. They would therefore not be entitled to grant of the variance. And I'll just remind you finally that at whatever point after the presentations and board discussion that motions are made, any motion made to approve the variance would be premised on them having satisfied their burden and satisfying each of those criteria. If there is a motion to deny, as I always ask you, if you could please state the specific criteria that you think have not been met as part of your motion. Thank you.
You're welcome. Hilsa, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I included on the staff report a timeline that was provided by the applicant, so detailing what were the, what happened since they bought the home. So there is a timeline, and just to clarify, as it says on page 5, the applicant has installed the subject lattice fence in the front of the residence. The applicant was cited by the Village of Tecuesta Code Enforcement Office for the installation of a fence without a permit. So those are the facts, and he prepared a PowerPoint, so that's a presentation.
I'll open the floor to our neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, this application for variance, as you've probably seen flipped through it, is fairly lengthy. I'll try to go through it quickly. There's one thing that I want to address up front, and that is that there is an aspect of the application that is sensitive in nature, and I had to redact it. I was working with Village's Quest to try to determine if there's a way to be able to discuss that information off record and not have that be part of the public record. Seemed like that wasn't going to be feasible, so we'll proceed, I guess, with the other arguments supporting this application for variance, and if we're hopeful that that'll be sufficient to meet the criteria. If not, then we can address the other part, which is really the primary argument, but again, sensitive in nature. So you'll see redacted sections in here as well. All right, so executive summary, as Neil said, just explained, we're looking for a variance from, or exception from 78 or section 78-284, walls and fences, and building a fence board of the nearest adjacent building on the property. The reasons that we're applying for a variance are as follows: all being pre-existing conditions and have resulted from the actions of the homeowners. So there's a safety hazard created by the pre-existing vegetation. It was extremely overgrown in the location that it was existing, encroaching on an air conditioning unit, which is also a pre-existing unit. The air conditioning unit is built into the sunroom, which is part of the overall building structure, and the sunroom manufacturer requires a specific clearance around that air conditioning unit. The next is that the backyard was not accessible to the pre-existing vegetation on the east side of the dwelling, and on the west side we have a boat on the lot, so access to the backyard is extremely limited, challenging if there were ever an emergency situation. The next one is redacted, so we'll hold on that for now. Again, being probably the primary argument here. And number 4 is an issue in which the pre-existing vegetation harvests significant amount of rodents, which I think anyone living in Quest has probably been dealing with that battle the last few months. All right, so the proposed fence plan mitigates the safety hazards while enhancing the aesthetics of the neighborhood and community without presenting any hazards. So that's it in summary. I get a lot more details on all these these conditions that we can go through. As far as a time frame, what was the expectation? Is that gonna, there's enough info that we can be here all night and try to make it, 10 minutes? I'm not sure what the expectation is.
If you could give us the details of your project so that
Yeah.
we can make an informed decision, that would help us out a great deal.
Okay. All right, so as far as the timeline goes, back in 2017, the property was listed for sale. In June 2017, we purchased, or actually in July we purchased a home. In June, we inquired at Village of Wester for additional information on previous renovations that were performed at the property, and we were notified that there was a permit for the renovations. However, there weren't really any plans on file for review, and that was with respect to some of the upgrades to the sunroom, which is part of really part of the redacted aspect of the application. So July, the purchase moved in. Fast forward 3 years, and this was back in June. Removed the overgrown vegetation, screening on the southeast side of the sunroom, and into July is when code ordinance notified us of a violation for putting up a fence in replacement of the existing vegetation. So we halt the project, had some discussions with the building inspector, and the building inspector notified us that the front of the property is not defined as the porch, the covered porch area, but actually the entry to the home. So therein lies the confusion. He said the only path forward would be applying for a variance, and so we followed through with that path. Here we are. So the fence plan, first we'll go to the pre-existing condition. You can see on the bottom middle of the page, the entrance of the house is shown, driveway in front of that, and over to the right, the red hatched area is indicating where the pre-existing overgrown vegetation was, and then the black hatched area is indicating where there's existing AC unit. It's a package terminal AC unit that's built into the side of the sunroom. Very similar to the type of AC unit you see in some hotels. The vegetation was pushing up against that and creating hazard, along with the other hazards mentioned. You can see as far as access to the backyard, very limited with the boat located on the west side of the house. And to get to the backyard, you almost have to cut through the neighbor's yard, cut behind it, and get through. So our neighbors definitely appreciate us opening up the other side of the yard. All right, here's some pictures of that pre-existing condition. You can see on the top figure, there were a bunch of bushes there, some other overgrown vegetation, so it's really all closed off. Looking from the backyard out, it's closed off with no access. Again, it was also harboring a significant number of rats, which was difficult to manage. All right, here's another photo from the inside of the sunroom, and that's looking at the PCAC unit that's described here, and not having the appropriate clearance on the outside of that unit. So the fence plan is showing now that the area that was previously shown in red, showing the overgrown vegetation, now removed, and it's kind of tough to, I don't know if I have any zoom capabilities on that, but the blue, light blue line is indicating the fence screen. That's about 4 to 5 feet off the front of the floor room there, providing the clearance around the AC unit. Just to the east of that is a gate for access to the backyard, and walking towards the front door, the entrance of the house, there is a proposed gate off to the right as well, which fully encloses kind of the, the backyard to the front.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So your green there, I'm a little confused about your Article B, 6-foot lattice screening in the green there. Like, why are you guys doing that? Like the fence is the fence, so like, this is the fence,
Yeah.
but why did you do that?
Okay, so, in terms of the variance application, and as far as, from what I understand from, the building code, a covered area can either be open or enclosed, either or, and the typical, hurricane impact ratings and all that sort of stuff don't fully apply, and I have more details on it later on. That screening more or less is there for, privacy and continuation of really, the architecture of the fence. Because again, that was covered with, a lot of overgrown, bushes. So there's a picture of it that I think will make more sense from.
Yeah, no, I was looking at it, and that's where I'm kind of like, that's part of the application as well, to keep that screening? Basically, you want to keep all the stuff that you put in, right? Is that what we're doing here? Like, you put this in, and, okay, I'm just
Yeah.
trying to, there's a lot going on here, so I'm just trying to figure out, but, okay.
All right. And again, I'll point out when we get to that slide.
Okay.
At least the village or the question code of ordinance and also the Florida building code, where it basically specifies that you can have an enclosed door open outside of the necessary references for it. So I've included it for completeness. I don't think a variance is required. However, I included it just in the
Okay.
event that it is.
Because it does match, but I was a little confused if that was part of the fence, but it's not. It's really totally separate, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
It is. So there are
Okay.
existing columns supporting the front.
Yeah,
porch.
I can see it there.
And
Okay.
actually, I'll go to the next, this is the fence detail that will need to be on the permit application. And let me go to the picture. Okay, here's the picture. So that, let's see, from left to right, that third palm tree in and the second one in are kind of showing, the overlap between that screening to the left, everything to the right is fence.
So if I understand you correctly, this area here is your front porch also?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, so I will jump back real quick to this slide. And there were some details here. I don't know if any extra explanation was needed on this, but I just shown the lattice, the 4x4 is concrete, and so on. That'll be needed to match up with the application. So, proposed fence plan details. So it's
Actually, I like your 11. Can we look at 11 again? I just so my own understand. 11, yeah. So the old house used to end right here, right? That's where the house, that was the existing house. That's your column, right? That's your little porch that goes. So your fence is going right up to there. Then the other guy, when you bought the house, they added the sunroom. But per code, though, this fence is supposed to be back a little. If that sunroom wasn't there, it would have been back, is it like 4 feet?
Yeah, per the Village of Tequesta code, the front of the house is defined as the exterior wall in which, you enter the front entryway. So it would have had to be basically where the Florida room is.
Oh, okay, even though that's an addition, okay.
Yeah, so right where the AC is.
So right, you wouldn't have to get a variance if it was just right here.
Right.
Exactly.
So your whole thing, so this is the why we're here, right? This
Yep.
part right here, okay. And the AC, you have to have that minimum. Okay.
So this talks in detail about the plan, but I think we covered it. Actually, it does have the one detail I was mentioning in terms of the screening. So, this is, item number 2, a screening built within the east portion of the existing front porch, that we were talking about. So, Florida Building Code, this is 2017, and it's, R301.2.1.2, and it's protection of openings. It states the following: openings in sunrooms, balconies, or enclosed porches constructed under existing roofs or decks are not required to be protected, provided the spaces are separated from the building interior by a wall, and all openings in the separating wall are protected in accordance with this section. Such space shall be permitted to be designed as either partially enclosed or enclosed structures. So, my interpretation of that is, the variance does not specifically have to, involve that, in that screening, because per Florida Building Code, this would be, permitted by design. I did not get, clarification from, in my discussions with, building inspector for Weston. All right, so this is showing, fence plan in more detail, kind of where we paused the process. There's another proposed gate here that's going to be directly inside of the home, and that's going to close off, access to the backyard, screen in, that side of it, and also allow ingress, egress type protection access limitations to the AC, so that kids aren't in there sticking their fingers in it when we're out on the front porch trying to get them ready to go somewhere. The manufacturing diagram from package terminal IC manufacturer right there, showing the required setback. That is 36 inches radially off the center of the AC unit. And this proposed fence plan, or fence plan we built up here, meets that requirement, maintains that separation. All right, so this next section goes through the justification of variance application, and it addresses those questions sequentially. All right, so special conditions. This is item number 1. Special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. So a safety hazard, again, this is kind of summarizing what was stated as an executive summary there, but safety hazard created by the pre-existing vegetation, in which pre-existing air conditioning unit along the sunroom south exterior wall currently encroaches within the air conditioner manufacturer's product clearance. The second item is a safety hazard in which a backyard is not accessible through the pre-existing vegetation. And again, this is primarily concerned having cut through the neighbor's yard along the other side, and then if there's any sort of, ever any sort of accident, emergency, and so on, it would be difficult for emergency crew to respond. Luckily though, our neighbor Al's a firefighter, so he'll come barging through the fence, he told me. Thanks for coming out. I'd wake him up. So, item 3, again, is redacted, and we'll see if we have to come back and find a way to revisit the redacted part of the statement. And number 4, again, is the word problem. So the proposed fence plan mitigates these safety hazards while enhancing the aesthetics of the property, and again, is addressing pre-existing issues that are special conditions related to the existing structure. All right, so this was a lot more info supporting item number 3 here for question number 1, again, redacted. All right, so question number 2 is justification of variance is not a result of the applicant. So special conditions and circumstances do not result from the action of the applicant. The pre-existing vegetation that resulted in the pre-stated safety hazards is shown in the picture here. That's a 2015 Google Street View. Okay, there's another redacted section in there, but we're going through that. And another part of the same argument for access to the backyards in terms of utility workers accessing to the backyard to the power lines that run in between the adjacent property in the back. All right, so these details on the renovation really apply to the redacted section, so we won't spend too much time on it, but the main point was that prior to the previous owner performed renovations that, as far as we've been able to tell, were permitted, and we cited the permit in here and so on. But the sunroom was permanently open to the kitchen, and that's what initially, before purchasing the house, we went to Village Request to ask for clarification on the permit plans and so on. We got an indication that permit was applied for and permitted. However, that was all the details we got. It'll make a lot more sense if we have to go into the redacted section, but maybe not needed. All right. So special privilege, question number 3. So in a quick scan of other houses within the neighborhood or other properties within the neighborhood, there are plenty of other areas where there are fences, in similar scenarios, and some of them may or may not be with variance applications. The photo at the bottom right, 300 Surfside Drive, that is another property in which they have a fence basically in the entire front yard that prohibits access into the house. That was applied for under variance and permitted. So there are several other properties within Cuesta that have this type of structure. Therefore, it wouldn't be a special privilege. It would be another condition that has pre-existing conditions, which would require a variance from the typical code. All right, so question number 4, hardship. Again, you'll see there's a decent amount of redacted information there. But if variance is not approved for the fence plan, and the homeowners will not be able to address the demonstrated safety issues going through in the last few slides. These are specific to the existing property. And again, other properties in the community are not subjected to the same safety concerns or access type limitations. There's another part that's fairly interesting in going through the Village Request code. So within Country Club Road, a front fence is allowable. So it seems like that the reason for disallowance elsewhere in Cuesta appears to be arbitrary as far as I can tell. So again, that ties into really question number 3 in special privilege, and also again in the hardship question number 4. All right, question number 5, minimum variance. So in order to meet the minimum standoff around the sand-filled AC, provide access to the backyard. The fence was really the minimum way to achieve that in an aesthetic manner. Again, for mitigation of rodent harborage, there'd almost be no way to do that with the existing vegetation. So a fence does a much better defense, and some gravel in that area will do a much better job. And these safety hazards have been demonstrated to be addressed by the fence screening plan contained in this document as a minimum variance. Question 6, public welfare. So the grant of variance will be in harmony with general intent and purposes of this chapter, and such variance will not cause injury or hazards to public welfare. And aside from the location of the fence is built within the permit requirements for fence, meets all the requirements from post size, spacing, concrete depth, etc. The fence is not really for the property by any means in terms of the setback. It's still directly adjacent to the front porch. And, yeah, otherwise we're not create any hazards. And I think that's it. So if there are any questions.
Okay, I'd like to open the floor for board, if you have any questions. And I'd like to remind everybody that this variance is specifically for this parcel of land. Anybody got any questions?
I have some questions.
Sure.
Could you pull up the color-coded plan that had the blue and green and purple?
What's the page number?
8. So the purple, is that part of this variance, the railing? Did you have a drawing for that I didn't see, or?
So the purple again, I kind of go into, I think, in detail in the next slide and explain what each this article A, B, C is. The railing is not part of the variance. It's really just part of the overall fence plan. So this fence plan is more so the plan I was going to submit for permitting purposes. So that railing, I don't know that if you need a permit for that or not, but I was including it. So that railing would be, I think I showed a picture of some other properties, pretty typical, yeah, let me jump up one. Pretty typical, I guess, bottom left is showing a railing on the front porch.
But that's not part of this variance.
It is not part of the variance unless I have interpreted the code improperly then.
And then the green part, why is that necessary? Like, why wouldn't you stop it just at the gate that's in front of the AC unit?
Again, based on, let me jump back. Again, based on the Florida Building Code, I would also argue that isn't part of the variance right now, because that would normally be a permitted renovation to the home. So as far as the Florida Building Code goes, the underscored part I have there is such space shall be permanently designed as either partially enclosed or enclosed. And that screening meets that criteria. So I would expect this isn't part, this wouldn't be, you wouldn't require a variance for this structure.
Okay, so the green and the purple shouldn't be on here for purposes of the variance?
Yes, correct. In terms of the fence plan, again, it would be on there. In terms of the variance, I do not believe B or C need to be on there. Again, I included them for completeness, only because the feedback I got from the building inspector at the time was, fairly brief, and did not get his full interpretation on it. So I did all the research, and everything I've seen indicates that's acceptable.
And then for the gate, I don't know, north, south, east, west, the one all the way to the right, was there not an option to put it at the building line and then just pull out the landscape from the AC to meet your clearance, and just have the landscaping from the air conditioning, pull it out?
That's been removed, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I know it's been moved, I'm saying in retrospect, and have the gate at the building line.
Yeah.
Well, that would be one way to potentially approach it. However, you're going to run into the same problem again, where you eventually have vegetation growing up into that area. Everything's going to continue to grow, so there's a maintenance aspect to it as well. And the next part really is, again, from an access perspective, being higher voltage, higher power outlet right there in the, the back. In terms of access control, keeping the kids away from it, a fence does a much better job than vegetation would.
I don't have any more questions.
Yeah. So there is there's a really good reason for why it's there. However, that's redacted, and if there's a way to go off record, we could certainly go into it in more detail.
Can we get some clarification? I mean, the Florida Building Code, that's not what we're here to discuss.
This is the
The
variance.
code doesn't allow certain things, and that's,
Right, go back to your 6 points here, that's.
right, yeah,
That's how we
but
have
the
to apply
building
it.
code.
This is the
whether the
zoning
building
code, we are about the zoning code.
Right, the building
All
code
right,
doesn't.
hold on, I can't read lips. So only one person has to talk at a time, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leslie.
Well, what the building code allows has nothing to do with what Tequesta allows. Is that correct?
Not exactly. The building code is the next step. So I think what the applicant is saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that in this plan particularly, he's included more detail that he will intend to provide with his building permit. That's when the building official will evaluate his permit against the building code. So he's included details in there, but I think those are more relative to permitting. If I understood what he said a few moments ago, what he's asking for tonight in terms of a variance is for the blue part of the fence on the diagram that's shown on your screen currently. Is that correct, sir?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, it is correct. However, if there's, if there ends up being, some other rule in that Article B is not allowed, then we would like to include that in the variance. The reason the Florida Building Code is cited is that the Building Code of Ordinance, and I think, all Florida ordinances point back to the Florida Building Code as a government document if adjustments or modifications are made to that.
I mean, that's kind of my comment, is that you're saying that B is allowable. But if you take that same B and you put it where you're saying the railing is, man, that's really ugly. Like if you were to put that same, like you're saying that's legal for you to do that. To put that same where you have B, where the purple is, that's kind of where I'm asking. I'm like, why are you, it just,
Okay. So
that's kind of,
yeah.
that's why I asked that originally. And you're saying, well, that's legal, I can do that. And you could do that, but it just doesn't look nice. So that's why I kept asking you. I'm kind of like, well, what's going on with this B? Because your fence is your fence. I get the fence. I'm really focused on your B.
Yeah, okay. So to answer your question, I guess in more detail, like, I understand where you're coming from now. So purple is a round, so it's
Yeah, railing's
30,
nice.
30 inches,
Yeah.
it's a round.
Hey, that looks pretty.
And
It's your B that
Yeah.
I keep looking at on the photo, and I'm just like, man, I don't get why you're doing that. But I can get because you're trying to match it, but
yeah,
it just seems like it's a little much. I mean, just for me, for that. But your fence is your fence. I get it.
yeah. We'll have our neighbor out attached to the
Yeah.
what happens on the other side of the street. So it's a privacy screening thing.
Okay. No, I get it.
We got a lot of neighbors, a lot of kids around, all that sort of stuff. Our kitchen window's right there. And, part of that's, a privacy,
Okay.
screening aspect. And, I thought it was kind of, decent.
No, everyone's got their taste. It's fine, and I'm not judging you. I just, like I said, it is a variance, and we're trying to make sure we're treating everybody fairly, and maybe neighbors that aren't here are like, oh, why is this board letting this guy do this? So that's kind of what I'm trying to. I get your fence though. I mean,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, the purpose of this hearing is the fence.
Just the fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I tried to, I thought I had other pictures on here. I do not. There are plenty of other
Well, like a
example
screen
of-
enclosure, like when I first looked at your
Yeah.
report, I was like, well, why don't you just screen it? And then you have, there's your privacy, and then you fence it, but I, you know, if you're allowed to do this, I mean, I get it. That's only my comment, that's why I keep harping on it, but we're not even here to discuss that, so I guess I get it.
Any other questions? Liz?
No, ma'am.
All right, we'll open it for public comment. Do we have anybody from the public? Sir, if you'd step up to the podium and state your name, please, for the record. Name and address. Name and address, please.
My name is Alejandro Ugaldi.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Alejandro Ugaldi. But I
Okay.
go by Al, because nobody can say Alejandro. So Al, I live at 319 Lee Road, which is directly next door to these guys. So I just wanted to come up and speak on their behalf in support of a variance for them. This kind of surprised me when I walked in. There's way more legalities than what I thought it was gonna be, but I just wanted to come and talk and give them my support. I think it looks good, the fence does. It butts up against my property, so if it affected anybody in the village of Tequesta, it would be me. And I don't have a problem with it, it looks good.
Okay.
You know, and as far as you were asking before about the lattice on the front of the kitchen window there, you know, that you thought it didn't look good, and if other neighbors in a neighborhood who aren't here thinks it looks ugly, they didn't mention, usually, everybody on the block signed a petition in agreement.
I got you.
All right, so that's everybody on the block, so
Good,
they agree with it.
good.
So like I say, man, I think I mean, like you mentioned before, the AC, there's a lot of kids on the block, you know, just trying to keep kids away from it, you know, and a lot of dogs too, a lot of neighbors. I have 2 dogs, so it's a safety thing, and it works, and it doesn't look good. So all you guys are planning and zoning, correct? Nobody here has anything to do with code enforcement? Okay. Y'all should check out across the street from my house, what I gotta look at. You know, I feel like you guys are giving them, and I get it, there's codes and stuff like that you have to go by, and I don't necessarily mean you purposely giving them a hard time, but this seems like a bit much to me, very litigious for something so simple as a fence.
Right.
You know, when you could have somebody else in here that really has problems, you know, like across the street from you.
Okay.
So I just hope you guys grant them their variance. You know. That's it.
Thank you, sir.
Sounds good.
Do we have any other public comment?
Yeah, I guess the last comment, this is my father-in-law, Mike, by the way. So while we can't really go into the details of the redaction, there's really a pre-existing safety concern that it really the only way to address it without a significant expense is with the fence, and a significant, you know, unaffordable expense at this time to address the pre-existing condition. So if there is a way to go off record, then I'd definitely be happy to discuss it. I think it would be beneficial to this overall discussion if there's still any doubts. However, as far as I understand, that's going to be difficult to do in the way the planning and zoning hearing operates.
Yeah, and
I
just
just
if I
wanted
could,
to-
there is not a way to go off record. This is a public hearing. This board can only meet in public at public meetings, so there is not an off-the-record opportunity in the eyes of the law. That said, I do believe that the information that the board got includes the unredacted version, which you originally submitted. So they have considered everything that you have put forward. The only reason that the redacted version could not be made part of the record is because it had already been uploaded and distributed to the board prior to receiving the second copy. So just so you know, the board has, everybody who's making a decision tonight has the full version of your application.
Okay, all right, thank you. And that will not be made public, correct? That version will not be uploaded to documents.
It was made
It was-
public by virtue of submitting the application, unfortunately. It doesn't go any further than this board.
Okay,
We can have a conversation after this about what happens in terms of the next steps. But once you submitted it, it unfortunately by law is a public record. So
Yeah.
your first submittal was, I believe, the full version, as I
Yes.
understand it.
Once you submit it, the minute you submit something to the Village of Tequesta, that becomes a public record.
okay, and maybe I didn't understand that part, but in our conversations prior to sending it, I made it very clear that this was an access control confidential document, and I have record of that, and said, this can't be distributed to anyone other than planning and zoning.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
okay.
it was
It has-
distributed
Yeah.
to the partner.
Yeah, so that's, the
Yeah,
intent
they
was
have to
distributed
have,
planning
they
and
have to
zoning.
have the,
Yeah,
the
Oh,
complete
yeah.
document. They do have the complete document.
yeah, exactly. And yeah, that was, the intent was for this conversation to have the complete document. But not for it to be publicly available if you're looking permits, houses, and, you can dig that info up. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll close public comment, and I'll open the floor to board comments. Anybody? Board, how would you like to move forward?
And if I could just give my friendly reminder, since it seems like we're getting to that part of the agenda. Any motions in favor of this application, again, would be premised on you believing that the applicant has met their burden and satisfied to the various criteria. Any motion to deny, again, if you could state with specificity particular variance criteria that you do not think have been met. The only other thing I didn't say before the applicant finished was, I think Janet alluded to it, just remember that each variance application that comes before you is its own application. You are to evaluate that specific application against the variance criteria. So if 27 other people in the village have variances for a similar thing, that shouldn't have any bearing. You are to consider, as I said at the beginning, the evidence here tonight against this particular application and these variance criteria tonight. Thank you.
I just wanted also to finally state that if the applicant would have come prior to installing the fence, we would have had a chance to review it, and we would have say, I'm sorry, this does not meet the
Can you
goals."
repeat that, Nielsa? I'm sorry.
All what I'm saying is that if the applicant would have requested a building permit to the village before he installed the fence, we would have had an opportunity to review it and mention, I'm so sorry, this doesn't meet the village code, and this is the way, we could have
Okay.
applied, he could have applied to the variance prior to installing.
Okay.
I apologize for that, it was kind of my fault, because we we're just replacing the fence that was,
Could you step up to the podium, please?
oh, sorry.
And you'll need to state your name and your address, please.
And actually, if you're related,
Yes.
I'll need to swear you in, actually, if you're providing testimony.
Sure.
Do you swear affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name, sir?
Michael Gerlach.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
What she's referring to, a lot of it's,
You need to speak into the, I'm sorry, I'm hard of hearing and I
Okay.
can't read lips
can you
under
hear me?
masks.
Okay. From what she's saying, part of that's my fault, because I've done a lot of construction, and because we were basically replacing the fence, because the other fence was, so much growth was grown through it, we had to remove it besides anything else, no matter what. I've done in the past where we are allowed to move them a few feet up and over, so I know you're saying he didn't come to you prior, but that's unfortunately, that's kind of my fault, so I apologize for that. Yeah, he was not trying to shirk any kind of whatever it is he had to do. They put probably $100,000 into that house, and everything's been under permitting. I figured with just a couple little lengths of fencing, it wasn't that necessary, but apparently I was wrong. I just didn't want it to be held against them for not pulling a permit like they're trying to hide something. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
How do we want to proceed, board?
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I don't like that you did it without a permit, that you did it, but the reality is it's close enough for me, so I'm gonna make a motion to approve this variance 6-20.
Do we have a second? I'll ask again, do we have a second? Okay, the motion's failing for lack of a second.
I'll make a motion to deny the SPM 2-20.
If you could just clarify, I think, the number, if you could restate the number, and if you could also specify what criteria, it should start with VAR. I think you might have the minutes.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay. Oh, the variance number, I'm sorry, I was looking at the other thing. Okay, I'm making a motion to deny the variance 6-20, the application from Bryan and Noelle McGilvray.
And are there specific criteria that you think the applicant has not met?
I think that there's another way of doing it without using that type of fencing. And I'm just not comfortable on giving the variance with that type of fencing.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. And once the vegetation was removed for special conditions, that eliminated a lot of problems. And I think there is a way to do this without, staying in code, with code.
Any other discussion to the motion? Lance, can I have a roll call, please?
Just if I could, just so the record is very clear, is the maker of the motion, were you speaking to the minimum variance being necessary? Is that the criteria that you are concerned about? If you can look at page 5 of Nelson's staff report, I think that's what you're both stating, but I want you to state it.
Okay, do you want us, Amy, to go down like A through F through her?
No, any motion to deny, I need, the record needs to be clear about what criteria you think the applicant has not met their burden of proving to you tonight. So it could be one or more than one, but I need to understand which criteria you do not think they've met.
Okay, so it would be special conditions and circumstances on number A, I don't think. And on, and on E.
And is the seconder of that motion in agreement with those, or are there additional?
The question number one, special conditions, I think that's not being met. And there is it can be done without this variance. And public welfare, again, once they remove the vegetation, that eliminated the, and I understand air conditioning and everything, but, we all have air conditioning. It's without fences around it, but, so I don't feel that's being met in the minimum variance. It could be done meeting, is that?
Okay, so are you then seconding the modified motion by Board Member Shower?
Yes,
Thank you. With the clarification that she did not feel they met A and E. You're seconding that motion?
yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
You ready for roll call? You ready for a roll call? Lance, can I have a roll call, please?
Janet Strand,
No. I don't agree with the motion.
is the no meaning no?
Just so we're clear, it's a motion to deny, so a vote in favor would be in favor of denial.
Denial.
A vote no, a vote nay would be
Unfavorable.
correct.
Correct, that's my position. I'm
Okay.
unfavorable. No.
Okay, I'm confused now.
Are you voting in favor of the denial or against the denial?
I'm voting against the denial.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Steve Egan,
I am against the denial.
Elizabeth Shower,
I'm for the denial.
Leslie Dutcher,
I'm for the denial.
and Molly Egan.
I'm for the denial.
3-2 denial.
Okay, ready? Okay. Where's my agenda? Let's see. Board. Next item is adjournment.
Are there any staff comments?
Oh, I'm sorry, staff comments. No comments.
And we need public comment on.
Public comments?
agenda items.
Can I have a final closing comment? Is that possible, or?
Yeah, you can, it's not technically public comment, but go ahead, sir.
Okay. So I understand I guess he had the full version with the redacted statements on there. There's a safety concern that was pre-existing when we bought the dual dwelling that was created by a permanent application or permanent renovations in which either the building inspector, the contractor, or someone missed a significant issue which resulted in a safety hazard. And I can't proceed with removing that fence without a much more expensive way of addressing that safety hazard, which we can't afford. And I think that this hasn't been, considered based on maybe the redacted version or so on. So we're going to have to proceed with whatever's next. We simply can't remove the fence this time because there's a safety concern for myself and my family in doing so. And I think that it was not a fully considered ruling, and and extremely, unfair in my opinion that the Village of Cuesta thinks they have the power to rule against something that's directly related to our safety. So we'll be following through with litigation or whatever's required for next steps.
Board comment? I'll comment. My problem is to.
If we could limit, this board has already acted, so if we could limit response to just board comments,
Sure.
not specific to this application.
Okay, all right. I reject that. Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we'll call it at